Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to the Audio Analyst. This past week, I spent the better part of 4 days with owner Bill Parrish at GTT Audio in Long Valley, New Jersey. The intent was to get more familiar with both the new Master Fidelity NADAC C Master Clock and NADAC D DAC, and the new Moya M1 Vivid Audio flagship loudspeakers. Today, we will explore the Master Fidelity products, including a conversation I recorded between Bill and I as we discussed the technology and its sonic impact. You will not only get an overview of what the Master Fidelity products do so vastly differently from any other products available today, but we will also discuss what that difference brings to the party by way of its advance in the credibility, the authenticity of the music it recreates as a digital playback system. The utterly unique manner in which these machines render music from your digital file source, be that from files on a server or NAS or streaming, in my experience, set a new benchmark for what the digital music playback experience has to offer. Spoiler alert! In my estimation, they are sui generis products in that regard. Their remarkable ability to recreate such engagingly realistic music from digital sources represents as significant a step forward from the sound offered by traditional digital to analog conversion methods used today as the Kronos Discovery turntable has elevated the sound of LP playback. Let's have a listen. Welcome everyone. Today we are in Long Valley at GTT Audio. We're in the big room, as it's affectionately called, and man, it's a big room. Without doubt, if not the finest room I've ever been in, certainly one of them. This is such an amazing space, Bill.
Well,
We're with Bill Parrish, owner of GTT Audio, who brings in a lot of really great products. You're familiar, I'm sure, by now if you've been following the channel. But today we're here to talk about the new Master Fidelity pieces, the NADAC C clock and the NADAC D DAC. Now, they do some things very differently, which we're going to talk about how it sounds in a few minutes because we both agree that's the important thing.
Sure.
But you know me, I want my people that are watching to understand the technological things that bring about what we hear. So in broad strokes, Bill, can you just take us through what makes these two pieces so different in your mind and why that's significant?
Sure. But first of all, thank you for taking the time to come out here to get acquainted with the Master Fidelity NADAC system. Really appreciate it.
It's my honor, buddy.
We've had a phenomenal time listening.
It's our third day listening, and
it really
I'm
is.
nowhere near petered out from listening. I'm ready to go.
We're still going.
We'll go till
I mean, it's just one thing after another. But
it's been exceptional, buddy.
But what they've done, and they're doing stuff differently.
Sure,
they're doing it differently.
Yeah.
It is the world's only true 1-bit DAC. Okay. And so most things are multi-bit.
Right.
But we know that DSD is single bit. But, you still have all these multi-bit DACs handling single.
Well, and many of them can't play native DSD. They do DSD over PCM.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or they convert
DOP.
They convert inside. They do upsampling.
Yeah.
Which the NADAC does a little bit of that, and I'll touch on that.
Yeah, but it's interesting how it works.
But it's 1 bit, so it can only process
1 bit.
DSD.
Yeah.
So what it does internally when it upsamples, and I'm getting ahead of myself here, but it converts everything to DSD. Yeah. And then true DSD is 100% native. There are a few different ways to do a DAC.
Sure.
Yeah. There's, but again, they're all, most of them, all of them are multi-bit. This is the only true 1-bit DAC out there. You can do a chip.
Or multiple chips arranged with,
go out and buy a chip, but
yeah.
chip-based. You can do discrete.
Yeah.
You can do FPGA.
Which is a combination of a programmed chip, basically, right?
Yes. It's a field gate FPGA, field programmable gate array. Yeah. And it's still a chip.
Yeah.
You're just able to
you decide to manipulate it the way you want it to work rather than just taking it off a shelf.
Exactly. But these guys, and they're using a chip.
Sure.
But they designed and developed and spent...
we don't want to go into it in detail, but they spent years and a fortune developing this stuff.
They spent years and a fortune developing.
Really, a fortune. I'm not joking.
I mean, I think it's out there that it was Taiwan Semiconductor.
Okay.
It's doing all the AI stuff.
Right.
I mean, that is the chip manufacturer. They're the ones that did the chip for them.
Right.
So they have exclusively, and it's their branded chip. So they're doing that, and so there's advantages to FPGA. There's advantages to discrete, and there's advantages to chips. And but what 1-bit does is it takes all those advantages, and of course, when there's advantages, there's disadvantages, and they get rid of the disadvantages. Right. And I want you'll probably link to their website.
Oh, absolutely. All that stuff will be in the description
and right
file.
On the homepage, if you read more about NADAC D, and there's a great diagram, and it shows you the linearity
of the device. Yeah, we were looking at that earlier this morning.
Of a multi-bit DAC versus a true 1-bit DAC. Yeah. And a true 1-bit DAC.
It was a ruler straight line. It really was.
Ruler straight line.
It really was.
And multi-bit.
It's got a little wiggle to it.
I mean, not huge variation.
No, but it's enough.
But the entire thing is wiggling. The whole thing. So it's filled with errors.
Yeah.
And this isn't.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That's on the DAC side. Now, why doesn't everyone do a 1-bit DAC?
It ain't cheap.
Well, there's that. There was no way to do it.
Right.
And, now they've developed and manufactured their own chips, so now they can do that.
Right.
But still, that's almost impossible to do. You have to have oven-controlled, super precise power supplies.
Which they happen to do.
Which they do.
Yeah.
In fact, they're using hybrid power supplies. There are places inside the DAC where there's linear power supplies. There's places where there's switch modes, because each one of those has advantages and disadvantages.
Absolutely.
Everything in that DAC.
And depending on what you're trying to power, you want to manage the advantages to that purpose.
Everything in the DAC is in its own Faraday cage. I mean, everything's enclosed.
Sure.
I mean, it has to do that, have the oven controls anyway. There's then there's clocks.
Yeah.
I mean, inside the DAC, there's clocks. There's word clocks that have to be super precise. And Master Fidelity is really the offshoot or a continuation of the consumer line of merging fidelity or merging technologies, which is the pro version or pro industry standard for DSD recording. I mean, I've talked about this on my channel. I believe we've touched about it.
We probably have, but I don't know. I don't remember.
I shot a video at Munich with the principals and Bert Vanderwolf, who's a phenomenal recording engineer out there at Munich. I mean, and I've said, you look at the top labels today, and you've got Bert's label, Challenge Classics, Spirit of Turtle, Triptych.
Oh my God, some of those are off the charts.
How much we played a ton
today, this morning alone, we played a ton.
And then there's LAWO up there in Oslo, Norway. Then you've got Jared Sachs at Channel Classics, and then there's a ton more out there. Yeah. Everyone that's doing DSD or DXD recordings is using the merging.
You want to briefly touch on differences DSD DXD?
So DXD is PCM, but it's super high res.
High bit,
super high. It's
They go way
DXD is really defined above 24192.
Yeah.
It's
thank you.
Yeah. and above 176. It's 352 and 384.
Yeah, it's not common knowledge, so I wanted people to know from you what that was for.
DXD, and it was Bert that coined the phrase or the term DXD. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's DSD, which is single bit.
Right.
And, so there's DXD, DSD 64,
128, 256, and 512. Now, there's no native recording at 512 yet.
There's nothing native at 512.
But the interpolation process, when it's done right,
we heard
pretty
it.
impressive.
We heard it. We sat, I have the same files on 256 and on 512, and we were able to go back and forth. And there's differences.
Yeah.
I mean, a case could be made
for either
way.
one. Yeah, depending on what you're listening for.
512's pretty sweet.
It is. It is.
So just understand that DSD 64, that's single bit DSD. The 64 stands for the resolution multiplier of standard Red Book PCM 44.1.
Right. It's 64 times denser.
Times the resolution. 128 is 128 times 256, 256 times
denser than CD's Red Book playback.
Than a CD.
Yeah.
So, there's density, there's resolution, and there's an analog feel to it. So we say that I've sat here and said that the NADAC D can only do 1 bit. So how does it handle the PCM?
PCM input.
The PCM. Yeah. So anything below 96K, so 44, 48, 88, 96 all turns into double DSD.
Okay.
And then anything above that, so 176, 192, 352, 384, all turns into quad DSD.
Okay.
DSD 256. And then, as we said, native is native on DSD, but it's got to be converted. And they've got a very special little computer in there that does that.
All developed by them,
CPU.
right?
Everything's
there.
Everything. Yeah. There's not a thing off the shelf, and that's important to know. Someone posted something on What's Best forum, and nothing against the forums and the people on there, but there does seem to be some people out there that seem to know it all, and they knew who did because the NADAC D is USB optimized. It's very important, and it's got the best USB input. It's they spent a year around the USB input on that, and so that what does that mean? Well, they went to a third party and had it done, and then on What's Best, they know so and so built their USB input, and now there's a generation 2, and so will they be changing the input right away to the new generation? You were talking about the receiver and all that. The answer is no. Because that company that built it for Master Fidelity did it in conjunction with Master Fidelity, and the version that they built and the technology that they used is exclusive to Master Fidelity.
It's specific to them.
So it's not the one that... So even the USB input isn't something that you can buy off the shelf.
Right.
It's Master Fidelity. So everything in this DAC, which most people, and the power supplies and so on, no one else can say that.
Right.
No one else can say that, but this is all done from the ground up by them, and then so there's this incredible master clock built into the unit. I mean, it's better than a master clock that they used to sell under the merging name for over $15K, and that's built into the unit. Now we get into the clock, and this clock, I mean, this is one of the most accurate and precise clocks, completely oven controlled, of course. Just to build a clock, they take these clocks and they season them for 6 months.
Yeah. For
6 months, and that doesn't mean they get to use them.
You said
so it goes through QC, and it's like, okay, these look like they can do it. Now let's season them.
These won't. Yeah.
And so let's season them for 6 months, and now let's take them back, and now we got to QC them. And there's a portion that don't pass QC after they do that. So that's why the clock's so expensive.
Sure.
I mean, there's so much time.
And yeah.
And I mean, not to mention it is an expensive crystal. I mean,
To begin
the
with,
crystal is so delicate and so expensive and so accurate, and then they go through all these extra levels.
It's like buying a 21-year-old Scotch versus something that just somebody pressed in the backyard.
There you go.
Yeah.
So NADAC C can be used in 3 different configurations. It can be a word clock, an external word clock that'll feed, I think, well, it's like 6 or 8 different items. You know, it's really for studios in that regard.
That makes sense.
And then their old word clock, rather than, because they don't run a signal through the word clock, merging didn't, and we don't either. Well, we do internally, but when they had the external one, they took sort of they picked their own frequency.
Okay,
and I think that's 625K. And they wanted to make this unit backward compatible to the old stuff that merging used to make. So there's that output as well.
Okay.
But how we're using it in the current NADAC, the Master Fidelity package, with the NADAC D, is we're just taking a 10 megahertz signal.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's, we're using it as a I don't know if it's a femto clock.
It's probably,
but it's
some kind of super femto clock.
Yeah, but it's a 10 megahertz signal.
Now the system will run from any NAS or, right? I mean, you can drive it from.
Well, no, we're not driving it directly. Like in here, what we're doing is we're running Rune. Okay. How we do it is we run Rune. We have a nucleus on linear power supplies and cables, and so it's a souped up Rune, and then we're taking that to that's the server, or as they used to call it, the core,
right?
And we take that to an endpoint.
Okay.
So you're not streaming directly in; it's not attached to the network in any way. So what we're doing is we're taking that to the Orlick Aries G2.2.
Okay.
Which is really
it's a
cool,
streamer, right?
Underrated unit. Linear power supplies internally, dual femto clocks, galvanic isolation on the USB. So we're going to that, and then we're coming out of that into this optimized USB input that NADAC developed.
Now, I think you can only do DSD over USB. They don't normally transmit over Toslink or any of that, right? Doesn't it have to be a USB input?
Oh, for the NADAC, yes. Well, there's USB, and then what's coming is going to be Ravenna.
Okay, but
people on my channel have heard me talk about Ravenna, and it's a pro way of doing it. That's why merging used to do it. They will allow Ravenna input, and with the Ravenna input, which is an IP protocol. So it's audio over IP, and not just over the LAN cable, but literally through IP, and it's cool, and it runs with Rune. So you just select Ravenna, and it finds its way to your DAC.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to tell us about the technology before we get into the fun part?
No, I think we get into the fun part. I'm not I give you the recipe.
Yeah, well, neither of us are engineers, but I think it's.
These are the two things I know, and everything else is what I've been told.
But I mean, I think
I'm regurgitating.
Yeah, but I think it's important. I mean, there are a lot of devices out there that do the same thing, but they don't always do it the same way. And it's usually the fact that they don't do it the same way that causes the differences in what you hear. So I wanted everybody to be aware that this is a really significally different approach.
Well, you're absolutely right. And I agree with doing this on your channel because it is just, this is a different recipe. It's a different recipe that actually produces different results.
Well, and from my perspective, I don't care how you slice it, how you dice it. God, does it work? Yeah. We spent the entire first day here. You guys all know I'm an analog guy. We do LPs, and there's a Discovery over there that's like the best turntable on the planet in my mind. But we spent the first day doing digital with some of the super great recordings that I'm not as into the classical side as Bill is. And he's got a tremendous library of classical that extremely well recorded. And classical, I know, we have some of that too. And then some of the popular music that I know. And we spent all day yesterday, all day the day before, listening to digital. Yeah. And
Tuesday,
the thing that was most apparent to me immediately was the sense of both space and immediacy that I've always found to be problematic with even the best digital. And there was a time where I hated digital playback. That was 2012.
Oh,
13,
yeah.
14.
So even before that.
Right.
Yeah. It
But,
took a while to get good.
Oh, yeah. But there's I think some of my first notes were about the acoustic recreation and the immediacy. I mean, the sense of intimacy between you and the performance. And the other things that kept popping up over time, there was a clarity, not in the sense of like removal of haze, but a clarity as in a better focus on individual voicing, at times hammers on strings, the reed and the clarinet. I mean, there were things that it wasn't like super hyper focused. It was just more clear. Okay.
Pianos sound like string instruments rather than percussion instruments.
And for a long time, I've used that analogy. Say people forget piano is a percussion instrument.
Yeah.
Well, we had, especially with the better classical recordings you have.
Oh yeah.
You could hear the immediate attack on the strings. It was staggering.
Oh, it was just terrific.
Well, and then everything that happens contributes to a sense of resolution that leads to a sense, because I think resolution feeds transparency. You can't have transparency without better resolution. Right. So, but what was more apparent, and it's also part of these speakers, which we're going to talk again about in the next episode, the effortlessness, the naturalness of one of the first things I said to you was listen to those trailing cymbals. Listen to how those horns there's just a sense of speed and detail here that I've never heard from any other digital system. And there are many, I'm not slamming digital systems, there are many good ones. But this, to me, and I said this to you yesterday, and you said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The NADAC digital experience, to me, was as big a step forward from previous digital for me as hearing the Discovery turntable for the first time over even my Kronos turntables. It was that big a leap ahead in terms of believability, reality, if you want to call it that, and dimensionality, and in particular, the immediacy, that sense that you're in the room with the performance.
This, Discovery's a game changer.
Oh, geez, no.
And you've said that this is a new mountaintop. This is a game changer.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to sit here and tell the audience what it sounds like.
We are going to play it for you, but
and that
it won't mean anything. But we're going to do it
because
people want to hear it.
That's all about what
the codec
what a few $100 microphone
and the codecs
can capture and the
codecs that are available,
and the YouTube, and then what you're playing it back. Half of you are watching this on your phone.
Go watch some of my episodes. You'll know I don't think it's that important, but
it's not the best. But anyway, you'll get to hear it a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing. So many times people have talked about use these audio terms. And with something like NADAC and Discovery or Moya, we need a new a new language, new terms.
Yeah.
That's
exactly the discussion you and I had when I heard Discovery.
Yeah. And
I told you it might take me a while to come up with the language to describe what I'm hearing here.
It's hard.
It's a challenge, but. One of the things that has always kind of kept me distant from the digital playback world was, in the larger sense, dimensionality is more two-dimensional. Things replicate more as a cardboard thin cutout of something in space. It's gotten better, and it's gotten better. This kind of sounds like a really good analog recording. I mean, it almost sounds like being live in the room, but I mean, we're still working with recordings, whether it's a mic feed or whatever, or tape.
It sounds like you're there hearing what the mic's heard.
Yeah, and this is
on the best recordings, and then on other recordings, it sounds like on those HDTTs, the high def tape transfers. They're also using the same system that Bert and Brandon and Chad, Jared and these other guys are using, and they're doing tape pulls. Well, you're getting the master tape.
Yeah.
When you're doing a tape pull at quad DSD, you're getting. I mean, and you put it on a scope. You've got square waves and quad DSD.
Quad DSD
looks like analog.
It essentially looks like analog. I mean, even at the closest magnification with a scope, it looks like analog. Yes. And I've heard some people who support the format say it is analogous to analog. It is analog. The stream is so close.
Well, and Bert says it's what digital should have always been.
No.
On Master Fidelity's website, it says 1 bit closer to analog. But that's really what digital should have always been. Yeah. There shouldn't have been this humongous discrepancy between analog and digital. But, in 1982,
we didn't even have 16-bit converters then. They were using 14-bit converters and interpolating two least significant bits.
They gave us something. They
lied
worked. To us.
Yeah, it worked.
It's terrible. We're always going down, right?
And because of the aliasing, there were brick wall filters. I mean, it was so wrong right out of the gate.
There was DVD audio.
Yeah.
And then there was SACD.
Yeah,
and MP3 won.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the masses went to.
If you've got an iPod and you want 1,000 songs in your pocket, you're not going to use.
So everything got dumbed down. Well, no. Now in this scenario, we are going.
Yeah.
We're going back to where we should have.
Yeah. This has been a remarkable experience because I'm with you. I'm totally about very good vinyl playback.
Oh yeah.
All right. And this honestly is as close. And in some ways, I think it's the same as. In some ways,
absolutely,
it's. I don't want to indicate
that it's different. I mean, listen, master tape.
Yeah.
Discovery. I mean, master tape on a Studer.
Yeah.
Or an Ampex all done up. I mean, that's as good as you can get. And
assuming that the original was on tape.
And Discovery is different, but it's as good as you can get. It's a little bit different.
Yeah,
and that's what NADAC is. I mean, you're just not going to get here a digital file. You're not going to hear any file better.
Yeah, not in my personal experience. Nobody's heard everything.
No,
okay,
no.
But by the same token, between the two of us, we've heard a shitload of stuff.
Well, no one's doing it this way either.
Yeah, and nobody else is doing. That was the first point we made. Is this is a unique approach?
I would almost venture to say no one can do this.
Yeah.
For a long
not
time.
Without a tremendous amount of investment.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys spent
we're not going to say
a fortune and time. Time is money too. So, God, I mean, but it's been
years in development.
Yeah. But it's certainly, from my perspective,
started before COVID.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that, but no. From my perspective, though, it's a clear success. The emotional experience has been the strongest I've ever had with digital. And guys, for me, I mean, those of you out there that think I'm all about the gear, you're not paying attention to me at all. But the emotional experience is why I have this ridiculously expensive gear. Is I want to get back to what the artist was trying to say. And from my personal experience over this last 3 days now, this NADAC system, and it's not even as expensive as the native system that I'm using right now for digital, but it is as emotively connecting as I've been to a digital playback system
And
at
it's
this
half
point.
the price of some of the stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
out
it's
there,
well, it's less than half of some of these stacks.
I mean, it's here at GTT Audio, we carry expensive stuff.
sure,
But
doesn't mean it's not value. Does it? I mean, most of the stuff
everything we carry is a value.
represents a value.
Represents a value at its price point.
Yeah.
And even if you were the most expensive, you could be a value if you
Absolutely.
were the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're in no way are we the most expensive on any of this stuff. Well, listen, I
Mr. Parrish.
really appreciate you taking the time
Thanks,
and
buddy.
bringing the message to your viewers.
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Invited me to be on your channel.
Anytime, buddy.
Much appreciated.
Anytime. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care. My sincerest thanks to Bill Parrish for sharing so very much of his time with me last week, allowing me to become acquainted with the unassailable and significant sonic advances these machines offer. While our words may give you a glimmer into their accomplishments, you really must hear them to fully understand what a game changer I find them to be. I hope you get to experience their magic for yourselves sometime soon. Next up, a couple of snippets from some tracks played on that system. Please keep in mind the limitations of what you actually hear from such in-room recordings. You are hearing the limitations of the microphone used to capture the recording, those imposed by the audio codecs used by the platform, in this case YouTube, and those of your playback system, God forbid, the native playback and speakers in your mobile phone or tablet. Regardless, here you go. As always, thank you for taking the time to drop by today. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.